Good afternoon. I'm Mary Anglade, and I want to welcome you to your 2026 Internet Marketing Plan, How to Maximize Your Lead Flow in the New Year. So 2026 is really going to reward those who plan in the modular building business and in the greater, home services and home building business. In fact, there's research that shows from Tavazo that you have 25% greater success in achieving your objectives if you plan. So I think that makes sense to all of us. I know when, just fundamentally, if you write out what you're planning to do, you have something to refer back to. You always kind of keep yourself, motivated and working towards those goals. So today is going to be all about creating your internet marketing plan. I'm briefly going to introduce myself, my company, but then we're going to jump right into your target audience, your positioning. I want this to be very interactive. You should have received a workbook to go along with it. If not, I do have a way for you to still access that. We're going to talk about some really important online statistics, who's online, how often they're online, and why it matters to you, most importantly, as well as some key frameworks just to help us, structure our thinking. We're going to talk about your baseline results, so where you are now and what are some of the key stats that you should be paying attention to, as well as, now you know where your baseline is, what are your goals, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the various digital marketing channels. What are they? Where are the opportunities? And just some top takeaways for each of them. And we'll finish it up with a planning calendar. I also have a special offer at the very end. The webinar is being recorded, so we will send out the recording. It usually takes us a few days to do that. We continue to do a monthly webinar. These are complimentary, so please do connect with us on social media, and please let others know in the industry. We really enjoy sharing this content, and again, it's all complimentary. So here is your 2026 marketing plan workbook. So I just want to make a note that this also has a lot more detail in it that you can, do at your leisure. This webinar should probably run about 45 minutes or so. So the idea is that you're going to have greater discussions and greater analysis on your own, and this should help guide your thoughts. So who am I? My name is Mary Anglade. I am the founder of Builder Lead Marketing. I have over 25 years of experience in marketing and general management. I've owned a digital marketing agency since 2012. I really have a great passion for working with builders. I also have a great passion for the modular angle, manufacturers, as well as the builders. And we work with modular builders all over the country, as well as companies all over the country, I should say. I am the author of the Modular Builder Marketing Master Plan. You can find that on Amazon. It was published in November. And I was a recent speaker at the Modular Housing Conference. I may have met you at the conference where we also exhibited. One last thing, my early career was actually in finance. I worked in banking, actually in the Garment Center in New York City. I was a credit analyst as well as a lender. So my approach to marketing is very data driven. I think our clients appreciate that because at the end of the day, marketing is, important, but we want to see the results. So that really sets us apart, and that's something that, really permeates our entire approach to marketing. Our purpose is to help builders, modular manufacturers. And again, we do work with other types of companies. I know I have some lenders on here as well. And frankly, with that finance background, I definitely understand your business. But, our goal is to help our clients grow using the latest in innovative and we emphasize transparent digital marketing. Again, we're very focused on results. And if you work with us, that is something that we bring every month. We sit down with our clients and we go over exactly how they're doing. I and my company, we're active members in the Modular Association as well as the HBRA. I'm in the Connecticut area, so I'm part of the Fairfield County one. And I'm also a part of the Professional Women in Building local association. We offer a few different digital programs. We're websites, SEO, pay-per-click, social media, and email, but we divide them into different programs because we have found that foundations is more for somebody who's really just kind of starting out and trying to establish a strong online presence. So it's a website usually paired with some automation. So if somebody comes into the website, you have an easy way to respond to them. Accelerate is where we are then getting into driving traffic to the website through Google Ads, through SEO. Usually there's a social media component. And enterprise is for our larger clients. We do all of those things. Plus, we may do some custom work as well. And we somewhat function as their marketing department. So before we jump in, if you're thinking, gosh, this is going to be an in-depth webinar. I don't know if I have the time for it. You can actually connect with me directly by email or scanning the QR code with your phone, and you can find time on my calendar. I'd be happy to do a one-on-one consultation. We also have another webinar coming up on January 21st. I will be redoing this webinar also in January, but on January 21st, we're going to be doing a deep dive into optimizing your website. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about your 2026 marketing plan, how you're going to show up stronger for today's buyer, and you're going to drive leads and sales and growth in 2026. The first step is really understanding your buyer. And again, in the workbook, there is a lot more that you can do to really get into the persona of who you are selling to. This is really fundamental in marketing because, as this slide exemplifies, you have, on the one hand, some new home buyers, a younger couple, maybe their pain point is they have outgrown, maybe a townhome, maybe this is their first home. And then these other couples, and of course, it might not just be couples in your case, but, for the purposes of an example, they are in a different stage of life. So maybe they want to downsize, or maybe they do, they're not thinking of retiring, they're thinking or downsizing, they're retiring, but they want to get a second home where the whole family can come and visit. So as an action step, right now, think of who is your ideal prospect. That person shows up at your model home or walks into your office or calls you and tells you a little bit about themselves, and you're like, oh, this is the perfect person. There's something about them, whether it's their budget or what they're looking for, fits the type of homes that I build or the services that I provide, as the case may be. You want to really nail that down. And again, in the workbook, we go even a step further. We like to think about, where do these people go out to dinner? Where do they go on vacation? What kind of car do they drive? Because, even though all of these people on this page may be looking for a home, they probably, are on different social media platforms. Different types of language resonates with them, different types of imagery. And there's a lot you can put in your marketing materials. So you really want to have a clear picture of who you're talking to and make it real. We even recommend you give them a name. And, this is something all agencies do if you've worked with an agency, but it makes it clear to everybody, and it can help even when you're working with your team internally. I want to just point out, and this may be obvious, but I think sometimes when we work with builders, I think sometimes we forget that home buying is such an emotional and may often be the largest financial decision somebody will ever make in their entire life. So, how are you showing up online? And we're going to get into, today we're talking about digital marketing, but first impressions matter. You need to exude the trust, expertise, and authority where somebody is willing to invest, time and money into building where they are going to be living and making memories you know, um, and it's clearly an investment as well. So I just want everybody to really think about that as we move forward. And then the other piece is where do you fit in your market? Are you really on the premium side where you're dealing with very high income people, luxury finishes, in high income zip codes, or are you more on the affordable end? The reality is you could have a great business in either of those businesses or either of those niches, but the reality is, you are going to have very different imagery, language, you're going to give a different image depending on where you are. And the other thing we want to think about before we get into tactics is, what makes you unique, right? We've all heard of the elevator pitch, but there are a lot of builders out there. There are hundreds of thousands actually in the United States. And same for all of the businesses. I realize I may have an assortment of types of business on this webinar, but you want to think what makes you unique, right? And by the way, what makes you unique and really stand out, that's actually what you really want to lead with, right? That should be on the homepage of your website, should be leading your marketing messaging. Okay, so the way we buy today, let's dive into, behavior, because if we can understand how people are approaching home buying, then that's going to clarify where we should be, what channels and how we should be operating. If you go back, 15, 20 years ago, people used to use the yellow pages. They were listening to radio, not podcasts. They were watching TV and, they would learn about products. They'd be watching their favorite show. Now we have streaming programs where you don't even have any advertising. And not that some of the things on the left don't still exist. They do, but really now we carry around personal computers in our pockets, extremely powerful phones that in seconds you are connected to the internet, you're connected to social media, you can communicate with anybody. We go on to real estate platforms like Zillow, we're searching on Google. We really have to think about how things have changed and is our marketing strategy and the way we are operating, is it up to date? Today, 97% of prospective home buyers use the internet to buy homes. So now this also encompasses people that are looking at existing inventory and not necessarily a new home, but that is a huge number. And of course, some people, when they don't find what they want, and especially, I know where I live, there's very little inventory right now. So people are looking to build homes. 97%. And 76%, and these statistics are from the National Association of Realtors. They do an annual survey, but 76% are using a tablet or mobile in their home search. So I love this chart because the 97%, this is a screenshot from the study, that's kind of an overall number. But if you look where that red arrow is, this includes people age 75 to 95. So, I think sometimes, people think, oh, it's just the kids that are online or the millennials. And that really is not the case. Everybody is online. We have, the young people we expect to be online on social media, but everybody across all ages, and they are using online methods to look for a home, and it's part of their buying journey. Furthermore, Fortune magazine did a study, and Americans are online an average of 7 hours a day. So I think this is really important because I know our clients, our builder clients, are not really online 7 hours a day. A lot of times, their jobs are taking them to job sites. They are really more, out and about. But I think when you think of your clients, people like me, frankly, people that work in offices, people in business, lawyers, they are online and they're online for hours a day. The same article said that actually it ends up being like 17 years of somebody's life. It's really kind of shocking in that way. And Forbes magazine did a study where people will give 5 seconds to a website, and that's when they form their first impression. So we're going to get into what you should have on your website. But right now, think to yourself, just in a very general sense, how are you showing up online? Do you have an old website that really is not serving you any longer? I know everybody's so busy. Sometimes it's hard to make changes, but you really have to ask yourself. And I always recommend you ask somebody who doesn't know you in a way that they would be worried about offending you, and ask them what they think of your website, and ask them when they think it was built, right? Because sometimes it's also easy to forget. We are all so busy that we forget that objective viewpoint. So, just lastly, I always like to paint a picture of maybe a typical buyer today. What does that buying journey look like? And this is a persona, Tom and Tammy. They are young professionals. They live outside New York City in a suburb, and they are looking for a home because they've outgrown their own home. They contact Roberta, the real estate agent. So she's on it. But then, Tammy, she's on Facebook and she sees one of her friends built a beautiful new home. So she's intrigued. She goes over to Google, looks into build home in Westchester, New York. That's giving her a list of potential builders. She starts looking at their websites. She's looking at their reviews. She shares it with her husband. He starts looking at this. Okay, so this is how it happens, right? It's sometimes not even an ad that's creating awareness for us. It's maybe somebody we know, right? Because we all have networks now. And through those social networks, it's very easy to share imagery, copy, and just your posts, right? So again, think about how are you showing up, and are you even showing up at all in some of these channels? Okay, I briefly just want to cover a little bit of theory with sales frameworks, just because I think it helps us as we're trying to apply, how do I choose what channels to be on? This is a typical sales funnel. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. It's been around a long time, right? We become aware of a product, and let's forget about homes. Let's think, I want to buy a car, and I just found out about this new type of car. It's a new Subaru model. I saw a friend of mine bought it on Facebook, but I also saw an ad for it on TV. And then, I start to go, and I am now considering other car types, right? I'm I'm in the consideration phase because I need a new car. Okay, I start visiting websites. I start going to dealerships. Then I get into decision making mode, and I'm looking at reviews, and I'm looking at what people are saying. I might be looking online. I'm talking to my friends, and then potentially I become a customer. So there's a great stat out there that really only 3% of people are really in the market to buy from you at any given time. But the rest of them, you want to keep in your awareness phase, right? So when they are ready to buy, they will think of you. So that's just your typical sales funnel. We are going to really tackle this in greater detail as we move through the webinar, but this is kind of as you are moving through the awareness, consideration, and decision making, what types of marketing and tactics would you want to use? So again, we will cover this in more detail, but I wanted to include this in the slides so you have it for reference. Another really important stat, and this actually 70% is even on the low side, but Google, Forrester Research, very big research-oriented companies have done studies that show that buyers have done 70% of their research before they ever pick up the phone and visit you. So again, now people are online, they're doing their research online. So we have another framework. This one is from a marketing automation company called HubSpot. I believe they coined this phrase inbound marketing. And the idea of inbound is that people are starting off, they're doing their research for, let's say, again, maybe it's a car, maybe it's a house, but so they are informing themselves. So they've got the awareness of that they need something, but then they're going online and they are looking at websites, they're looking at reviews, they're looking at online information. So when they get to your website, you hopefully have a reason for that person to give their email. Sometimes somebody doesn't want to give an email that's going to result in a sales call. So hopefully you have something like a newsletter or some type of lead magnet out there. Then that person becomes more than just a visitor and you can communicate with them. You can nurture them and, hopefully they will become a customer and then a brand evangelist for you. So again, as we move through the channels, which we will be getting to shortly, think of these frameworks and think about, just high level right now, what do you need to do to reach today's prospect? What's kind of in your gut, what do you think your top, one to three, tactics would be? And we'll compare that at the end to see if you have decided differently. All right, so let's get into actually, we're ready to plan, right? So the first thing we want to do is just create a baseline. Like, where are we? Most companies and certainly the builders we work with and definitely the modular manufacturers, they know their revenues, they know their profits. If you are running a factory, obviously, you have capacity considerations. So you have to be very honed in on some of those financial numbers. Same thing with homes sold. I think most people know that. But then come over to, a little bit more granular. Do you know how much traffic actually came into your website? We know people are online. That's where they're doing their research. Are they showing up and visiting your website? And then, what do your leads look like? So how many came in from your website, either phone or on a form? How many people maybe just picked up the phone and called your office or walk-ins? Get a good idea of that. And this a lot of information here, but I did want to give you some actionable items. If you do not know how much traffic you have, and sometimes when we start working with our builder clients, they don't. This is easily obtained, at least going forward, it will be. Google Analytics is free. And so here is the link. You can just go and sign up. And then any developer or agency should be able to help you getting that code onto your website. There's even YouTube videos out there where you could do it yourself. And you can actually start to see where your traffic is coming from. So is it coming from organic search? Is it coming from social media? Is it coming from direct where they're typing in the URL? You can tell how much time they're spending, where they visited on your website, where they're coming from geographically. So it's a wealth of information and it's free. Uh, Social media, actually, every single social media platform offers free analytics. So you can go in, you can see which were your top posts, how many clicks did you get, how many comments, very granular. So, I also like to say at this time, hopefully you know this information. If you don't, 2026 is a good time to start. But if you are on social media, like write down how many followers you have on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or if you are on some of the newer platforms like TikTok, write it down and make that part of your plan. So this is just a sample. I wanted to give you a sample of what Google Analytics looks like. I also realize that on these webinars, I have people of varying levels of expertise. But just to give you, this is just one screen of many, many that you can get out of Google. But I think for me, the most important is how many leads. So where they call them key events. That's showing one of our builders. They got 383 leads through phone calls as well as form fills on their website. And on the left are all the different channels. So they are, they've really got their marketing dialed in, and they are tracking this religiously. Something we do for our clients is we look at trends, and I encourage you to do that as part of your planning process. If you have had Google Analytics on your site, you should be able to go back as far as you have them, and probably doesn't make sense to go back more than 4 or 5 years at this point. But take a look at what your traffic has been, how many leads came into your website, and then look at what your conversion rate was, right? So that's another thing you want to track. If you have a sales team or maybe you're an individual business owner, when you get the leads, what's your sales hit rate, right? And again, if you don't have that, this is something we recommend. Peter Drucker, a very famous business consultant, what gets measured gets done, right? So I know for our own internal dashboard, anything that we kind of create where we're really tracking it, that's where, we can see where there's room for improvement or where we may want to change what we're doing. Okay, so the other thing we want to do at this point in time is to look at the competition. Who are your top three competitors? Write them down right now. And I recommend you go and you look at their marketing. Take a look at their website. Look at their lead magnets. Do they have a newsletter? Do they have a downloadable guide? Look at their social media. How many followers do they have? What kind of posts are they doing? Are they advertising? You can tell this on Facebook. You can see if a competitor's advertising. You go to their About section on their Facebook page and go to Transparency. And below that, you will be able to see what kind of ads are running. Facebook includes that. They want people to know exactly where the ads are coming from and what ads are out there. So take a look at that. Look at how are they showing up in search results. Type your business in and your location. See how, so when I say that, I mean, like if you're a home builder, near Danbury, Connecticut, as an example, see how you are ranking compared to your competition. All of these things are actionable. You can be successful at being at the top of those search results, which we're going to get into shortly. All right, so we have our baseline. We've thought through our messaging, who our target is, who the competition is. We are looking at them. We have a good idea of the landscape, and now it's a great time to set goals. So, what are your goals for 2026? What were they for 2025? And, if you don't set your goals, are you more like this sailboat kind of floating around? Or are you like this sailboat where the entire crew is dialed in, they know where they're headed, and they're going to get there, right? So I know I'd rather be like this one here. Wind is in the sails, right? And what's your long-term vision for 2026 and beyond, right? So, at least flesh out where you're going to go. I think this is a great time to think about your why. Why do I want to grow? Do I want to have greater financial wealth? Do I want to build a business that I could perhaps sell at some point? Do I want to give it to my children? Do I want to leave a legacy? And maybe some don't want to grow. That's might be something to consider. But I think if we can really think about our why, that also makes these plans come alive. And if you can connect to that, whatever it may be, I think this is obviously very personal, right? but it's a great time to think about that. And in your workbooks, there is a link to this. It's a spreadsheet you can use where we have created the formulas. You can put in your revenue targets. What is your monthly revenue? Depending on how many homes you're building, it will give you the number of leads that you really need and if you haven't been tracking your conversion rate, obviously you can just estimate it. But you want to get down to where you really can figure out how many leads you need to meet your goals, how much money do I have to spend, and then I can create a budget, right? Because a budget has to be part of the plan. Marketing is an investment. This is an investment in your company. So what are your goals for 2026? And how many leads will you need monthly to get there? And how are you going to go about driving those leads, which we're going to get into next. All right, so we have something at Builder Lead Marketing we call the accelerated growth model. It's all about driving quality leads, maximizing conversions, and then optimizing the results, right? So the first step, we like to say, your website is your 24/7 online model home, right? It is there when you are not. So with Americans being online 7 hours a day on average, if they are looking at home builders, they're looking at your website, right? So, and if you're in another business, it's the same thing. Your website really is your online home. It really does just start there. And the great thing is you own it. Not to say that, and we'll get into social media, but it's good to have your own place. We have worked with companies who they were only on like Instagram, and then the Instagram account got hacked, or Instagram changed its algorithm, and they were at a loss. Your website, you own it. You should back it up. By the way, most hosting backs it up automatically, but you may even want to take it a step further. So super important. We have a few what we call website essentials. You're going to want a modern template. We recommend WordPress. We recommend WordPress because there are probably millions of developers around the world that know WordPress. You don't want a custom coded website or an archaic coding system where you are reliant on just one person. This won't happen to you with WordPress. The other great thing about WordPress is there are dozens of templates you can use. They're optimized for mobile. They have all kinds of plugins. So these are snippets of code that you are not going to have to pay a developer to create for you. It's just a very adaptable website, and we highly recommend WordPress. The second thing you're going to want to do as a builder or as a manufacturer is really build out your featured homes. You know what? Invest in a photographer. Really, this is what people love to look at. We see this with all of our clients. It's usually the second most visited part of the website. Sometimes it's even the first, and that's kind of unheard of in marketing. Usually your homepage is the most visited. But think about it. HGTV and these other home type of channels, they wouldn't exist or be so popular if people didn't love looking at beautiful homes, right? And you want to look at the interiors and the exteriors. And the other thing, if you are modular, a lot of our modular builders love pictures of their set days. And, I'm not saying you shouldn't put that on your website, but I would put that more in the process section, or you could like mix it in, but give people, you're really selling a lifestyle, you're selling a dream. And I think there's a more, narrow percentage of people that are going to just be gravitating towards the sets and the cranes. The other thing, if you're modular, and this is probably true for any building business, but educational content is so important because of all the confusion around modular. People think it's mobile, they don't understand it, they don't understand the benefits. There are so many benefits, right? So many advantages, but you have to take it upon yourself to educate your prospects. And they're going to have a lot of questions. So I would have a very detailed FAQ section. And again, we'll get into this a little bit later, but give people some meaty guides, like give them some information. They should know it's typically more sustainable, it's faster, the materials aren't sitting outside in the rain and the snow. Again, you can customize modular homes. Like, people think these are cookie cutter homes. It's up to you to change their perception. Lastly, if you're building a brand new website, typically you need a designer and a developer. Sometimes this can be one person, but home building is very visual, so you really want somebody who has a good eye. And these are two different skill sets. They have different educational backgrounds. So we recommend that you get a designer as well as a developer working on your website. You're going to want to highlight your social proof, what other people are saying. People are looking that there's somebody like them, that you have helped somebody like them, right? And you want to show this on your website. Video is great if you can get it, but at the very least, you should have written testimonials. There's a lot of great features you can add to your website now. A live chat is one of them. Now there's AI chat, which we are working on, actually a pilot program for all of our clients. And people prefer this. We live in a self-serve, economy. Think about it. People check out the grocery store by themselves. They don't really, they don't want to talk to people. They want to get their questions answered. And there's, some research here on this slide that just shows they prefer chat. I'm not going through this entire thing, but there's a lot more we could talk about for websites. And we've included a checklist in your workbook. Take it, go through your website and see where the holes are so you can put that in your plan to fix, hopefully even before the end of the year. But if not, you can target it for the first quarter. All right, so let's talk about getting found in search. I like to say, if you have a website, but you are not optimizing it for search or you're not driving traffic to it, it's like putting up a flyer in the woods and hoping somebody walks by it. Your job is not done with your website. So one of the fundamentals is search engine optimization. What is SEO, right? Like we've got all these buzzwords anymore. All it is taking actions on your website, the way you tag it, the kind of content you produce, the links that you have coming in and out of it, so that Google, and it's mostly Google, but it could be Bing, it could be Yahoo and other search engines, they know what the website's about. They know that it's the authority. They are looking for these signals. And, this is a whole discipline, but it's something that really is pretty fundamental, because you want to be found when people are out there doing their research on their journey. You want to come up in those search results. I wanted to give you just a couple of examples, just because I do think I've had some builders ask me, what's the difference between PPC and SEO? So, this is just a screenshot. I did this search, New Home Builders, Connecticut. So up top, sponsored, that is what we call PPC. Those are Google ads, and we'll get into the details on that. Organic, Sunwood Development is coming up first. So Google is looking at their website and saying, this is the closest that I am going to serve up to this person searching with those keywords. So Sunwood has optimized their website so people will find it. I did an entire webinar on this, so I really did a deep dive, but just briefly, you locally will have noticed there's something called the map pack. This is extremely important because over 40% of the clicks actually go to the map pack. And, obviously you want to show up here. Now, fairly recently, Google and the other search engines are doing an AI summary. You may have noticed that your traffic has dropped because people are just stopping there. They are not going and looking at your website. So that is at the top. And then they're also prioritizing video. Video is very important. So we highly recommend that you create video and then you should have it on your website, YouTube channel. People consume content differently and learn differently. So it's important to have video in addition to text and other forms, for for people that really are visual. The other thing I just want to mention is the importance of reviews. This will also help you when people are searching. If you have 45-star reviews and somebody else has 3 reviews, like you are going to do better in these listings. So this has to do with really implementing a process for asking for reviews. After you build a house or you've provided a service, don't be shy if you know somebody was happy with you to ask them for a review because it really does matter. All right, so super quick, just summary on SEO. We also did a big webinar on this last year. I had my SEO expert on, but SEO is also typically the best quality traffic. People are in a frame of mind where they're doing their research, so they're very kind of invested in getting answers. And it's really the gift that keeps on giving, in that you could write a blog post or you could have a page on your website. You've invested some money in it, but then it attracts traffic going forward. So just again, gift that keeps on giving. It's not set it and forget it. It is an ongoing process. The algorithm changes. You want somebody who's on top of that. You want to be always putting out fresh content. Blogging is not dead. We recommend you blog at least twice a month, and then you optimize those posts, because Google is looking to say, who's the authority? Is it somebody who hasn't updated their website in years, or is it somebody who just put out fresh content on, the benefits of modular building, for example, or the latest in the real estate market, as the case may be. The other thing I just would add is this will help you with SEO is if you are operating in a certain location. So a lot of our builders, they have certain counties and even towns where they operate. What you'll want to do is have a page on your website specific to that location. And you want to make it valuable content, include information about the permitting process, the architectural board, if there's one, and maybe about the community. So when somebody's searching on that, they're searching building in Chappaqua, New York. If you have a page on Chappaqua, New York with really valuable information, you are going to come up in those organic search results. All right, so pay-per-click, which in most cases when we talk about PPC, it is a generic term. It can refer to any type of advertising where you are paying per click. But I find now in digital marketing, when people are talking PPC, usually they're talking about online ads and specifically Google ads. Okay, so where I showed you the top of those search results, those are your sponsored ads. You bid on the keywords and you show up, right? Depending on how much money you have and how skilled you are at, Google ads. It's an immediate source of leads. Typically, we find it isn't as good a quality as SEO, but it is good quality. It does take some time. You can't just test it for 30 days. And Google is great about giving out these like credits, but it's nowhere near enough money to really test it properly. We recommend you're going to give it at least 90 days. And again, you're going to want to work with somebody who really understands this stuff. It's the 800-pound gorilla. We're going to talk about ChatGPT in a minute, but 90% of the searches are happening on Google now. Just some top 3, and again, we did a webinar on this with a lot more detail, but as you're thinking about 2026, you want a strong web form. If you're in building, generally, we recommend you're driving traffic to your website. You are not selling toothpaste or t-shirts. A landing page is likely not going to do it. Beware of generic terms, because this is where you could really waste your money. Something like real estate, Sotheby's and companies like that are also bidding on. Or it could just be people wanting to invest in real estate. They're not necessarily looking to build a home, or, you have to be very careful. So we recommend, longer term keyword phrases. And again, just give it some time. So what about ChatGPT? People say, how do I get found in ChatGPT? Isn't all of this kind of, outdated? And Really, that's not the case at all. First of all, if you have been doing SEO, ChatGPT is looking for who's the authority. So the good news is if your site is well optimized and you're showing up as an authority, ChatGPT is going to pull that into its answers. I recommend right now go into ChatGPT or after this call, go in and just say, who is the best builder, put specifics around your business in your location and see who comes up. So it's very telling. But, a little bit of information, most of the searching is still going on Google. It's 90%. Google also owns YouTube. So you're talking about, 14.5 billion searches, every single day. And ChatGPT is, quite small compared to that. Okay, so database. Let's just quickly get into database. That's great. Now we've got our website set. Let's say by the end of first quarter, your website is up. You're testing. You've got it optimized. You've got that dialed in. You're testing Google Ads to drive traffic, drive leads. Now what do we do, right? The problem with even people that are driving traffic to their website is the website could be leaky. You're getting traffic, but there's no way for you to continue communication with that person. And half the leads are leaving unconverted. Um, the reality is there's a lot of studies about this. If you don't reach out to somebody within 15 minutes, they go cold. And then the other thing is you got to follow up between 5 and 7 times. Most salespeople stop after 2 or 3. So, how do we address this? Well, we give them something they need and want. Again, I'm using a modular example. This is something that people get confused about. This is a great example of a guide you could put on your website, put it out in search. You can actually promote this with Google Ads. And somebody who's not necessarily ready to buy a house, but think back to our frameworks. They're in the awareness phase or they're doing their research online. They're in that inbound marketing phase. They find your website, they give their name and email. You've given them a great piece of content. You want this to be high quality, answer their questions. You're establishing trust, you're establishing a relationship, right? And now you can communicate with that person. You could reach out to them, or you could put them in your nurture sequence or your drip campaign. You have a way to communicate with them. I think this is Clayton Homes. We took this screenshot from. A newsletter is also a great idea, a way to build up your own database. So I want to give you a little case study here. One of our clients, when we started working with them, they had about 6,000 names on their database, but they really weren't doing any regular communication. And so we implemented a newsletter for them. And the very first time they sent out that newsletter, they resuscitated a prospect who had decided to go with another company. That other building company did not work out. And when he saw the newsletter, he picked up the phone and said, you know what, I'd like to talk again. And they ended up selling this person a home. So, when you think about that, the ROI on that newsletter, right? It's a relatively simple way to communicate. It's not super salesy. It's just, maybe you're featured home of the month. Maybe you have an upcoming webinar, some sort of special that might be going on. You're just informing people in a really, nice professional way. And, this is just further proof that email is still really important. I think people tend to think that email is bygone, like the yellow pages, and that really is not true. This is a channel that allows you to communicate one-to-one. You can personalize it. You can, there's no algorithm to interfere like on social media, and you can nurture somebody along at your pace. So, hugely important. All right, so let's talk about social media. This is our last channel, but a super important one. And frankly, we're seeing a ton of success here with our clients. Home building is really visual. People love to look at beautiful homes. And the reality is, Facebook, Instagram, platforms like that are very visual. Again, this is where if you get some good photography, some good video, you can really amplify it here. A couple of caveats. It's a commitment. You know, it's not a good idea to, oh, you set up a page and you haven't posted in a year. Again, people are forming opinions about you online. They might think you've gone out of business, or maybe you don't have a budget, and maybe you look kind of small, like, oh, I don't know if I really want to invest all this money with this person. It's very public. Nobody can see if your direct mail campaign bombed, but they can see that, nobody liked your post on social media. Ads are huge traffic drivers. And frankly, if you really want to get anywhere with social media, you do need to put some money behind it. The good news is you can actually have a fairly modest budget and you can really reach a lot of people. It's measurable, it's highly targeted. Home building is a special category for Facebook and Instagram, so there are some limitations. You can't, you have to open it up to all ages, 18 and over, even though most 18-year-olds are not building a brand new home, and both genders. And you can target geographically, but it's a 15-mile radius. And you can't like exclude, like, let's say you want to exclude a zip code, you can't do that. Uh, we like to say go where the people are. These are enormous audiences, and because you can geo-target, we strongly recommend that you do make some commitment to social media. Hundreds of millions are on Instagram, on Facebook, across all the age groups. They're spending hours a day checking, social media. They're looking at their phones. This you really can't create this like yourself. So that's frankly why Facebook made $164 billion last year. These are very big companies, and they're actually global at this point, all over the US, but around the world. So, what are the do's? Very visual, great fit for builders. Imagery is hugely important. Put a variety of content out there, not just about yourself. Talk about your communities you're building in, highlight your team, great way to personalize, and you can advertise very, very efficiently. Don't set up your page and never post. Also, too, I failed to mention on your website, if you have social icons, make sure that you're actually on those platforms. A lot of times, for whatever reason, people put all these social icons, but they're not on X or they're not on Instagram. So only put the social platforms where you are and make sure your pages are up to date. The other thing I'll just add is while I do think it's better if you're not ready to commit to wait until you are, there is a price for waiting because every page starts off with one follower. Facebook, you can advertise for followers. Instagram, it's a little bit harder. You can boost content, which will eventually lead to more followers, but it takes time to build a following. So, just keep that in mind. All right. So automation, is lead flow the problem? As I mentioned, there's a real problem with not following up quickly or enough. And, there's also all these preferences around texting. So this could be extremely exhausting if you're trying to do this on your own. But the good news is there are all kinds of marketing automations you can do. We offer our clients automation. You want to be able to follow up like pretty much immediately and very, very frequently. So, in this example, automation can do all this. It can send a text, it can follow up with in moments. You can actually automate like a sequence of emails. You can have the automation act differently if somebody responds or doesn't respond. So, this entire framework is something that is really available to all of you. Okay, so now we've kind of gone through the channels. Hopefully, you have an idea of things that you would like to do for 2026 within those channels. We should talk about budget. Really, these are from the Small Business Administration. There are other numbers out there, but basically it's 5% of revenue just to keep your market share, 10% to really grow. So you can compare that to your numbers. Again, we kind of talked about, is growth really something you want or not? And I have talked to some builders that, they're maybe thinking of retiring, they don't really want to grow. So it is definitely an individual decision. And, again, we kind of talked about this in the beginning, but as you look at 2025 and then you're in 2026, start to figure this out because then you can figure out where you want to really allocate your money. If you are getting cheaper quality leads from social media versus Google ads, well, you might want to put more money into social media, right? So, famous quote here about half my advertising spend, but I can just tell you that I've been in marketing for a long time. And one thing you should be doing every year is testing. Marketing is always changing, digital marketing, especially. And you should just have a percentage of your budget where you don't necessarily know, what the results are going to be, but you'll get a baseline and you can start to test, right? Testing is really, really essential. So, and frankly, with all due respect to Lord Leverhulme, a 50% hit rate for testing is actually very good. So, as we wrap up, I would like everyone to think about, what area do you need to focus on? You can't do everything all at once. Maybe, this year it's going to be the year of getting your website in order, driving traffic to it. I'm not saying you can't do all of this, in one year. You absolutely can, certainly if you work with a company like ours. But I find it helpful to kind of prioritize and, map and really map it out. I like to look at month by month, and I like to look at it by channel. So, you can kind of do this as well. Um, there's also seasonality in building, we have found. Even though if you're modular, you can certainly build year round. A lot of times holidays are a little slower, end of the summer. Sometimes you get into some doldrums. There's also just holidays. There's reasons to reach out to people. And, it doesn't always have to be about selling. You can just wish somebody a, wonderful Labor Day, long weekend. This sort of map, it's very simple, but it helps us not forget about, those types of events. All right. And in summary, what did we really cover? It's your growth stack, right? First of all, you got to get your target down, your positioning. Please look at the workbook. There's a lot more in there. What are your results and your baselines? It's hard to plan and create goals if you don't know that. Get your website in order. People are judging you, and you want to have it optimized. If you have some budget, we do recommend Google. Google wouldn't be Google if these ads weren't effective. Social media, extremely powerful and a great traffic driver and lead generator. Email is still really important. It's one thing that you can own. So, don't forget about email and come up with a plan that covers the year. And not to say you can't adjust it as you go forward, but again, going back to that initial stat, you're going to have a greater success with a plan. Finally, just wrapping up, we do offer a free marketing review. We will look at, we have some proprietary technology where we can see how you're stacking up, what keywords are working, where you're ranking, how you stack up with the competition, what you're doing with your reviews. We'll look at your social media. Uh, and it's all complimentary, no obligation at all, but you'll walk away with something valuable. And that is that phone number actually connects directly to me, and that's my email. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the Modular Home Builders Association for promoting this webinar as well as all the webinars I've done this past year. Please do connect with us on social media and have a great day.